Yo, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. In my video, I'm going to be reacting to Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 8. This chapter was very interesting and this changed things in the Boruto story again because in this chapter Shikamaru and Ino, they're starting to put two and two together after talking to Boruto that something isn't right with how things are playing out right now. Boruto is stronger than ever now, and y'all know Ada still has her motives on things, but something very, very interesting happened. Jorah, who is looking for Naruto, sent some tail beast chakra and Naruto's daughter Himawari, so she's has some chakra in her, and which makes me think in the future when Naruto comes back, she's gonna give that chakra to Naruto most likely. But let's get into it.
And as a bit of an understatement, we got Jorah's invasion of Konoha all the way underway. Kawaki's getting one shot during this fight, and Himawari Uzumaki is being revealed to be in possession of a bigger power that's going to have every power scaler in the community number crunching as a result of this, because Himawari stocks are going up faster than the Kawaki stocks are crashing. So let's back things up and let's dive into the recap portion of the review itself, because we got a lot to unpack here. We open up the chapter with Ada replaying the events of the last chapter, but because this is Ada, someone who despises fighting and views it as being barbaric, she basically skipped over the entirety of Boruto versus Mitsuki and is instead focusing on Boruto telling Mitsuki that he is his son and he will always be there for Mitsuki regardless of the circumstances. And based on Ada's reaction, Boruto might have added someone else to his harem, but we'll touch on that later. Right away, this is our sign that Ada has been ordered by Kawaki to use her Semigon to track Mitsuki's location so they can find Boruto, but instead of looking to see where he is in the present tense, she's watching what happened when Mitsuki found Boruto. It's a subtle action, but it's enough to show that there's a small crack that's being set in the Kawaki and Ada dynamic, and the chapter then makes it clear even more when you see what happens next. That entire Boruto-Mitsuki conversation, it grabbed Ada's attention, but before she can go through her thoughts and feelings any further, Kawaki starts talking aggressively to Ada, saying that he doesn't have time for her to be taking her time because he's worried Boruto will escape. We're seeing subtle signs of it here, but we're seeing Kawaki's aggression towards someone who clearly loves him show itself, and it goes to what we've been saying for his character arc. In part 1 of the story, he was the boy who had nothing and he stole everything he wanted, and in part 2, he's the boy who has everything he's ever wanted, but he is slowly losing most of it, if not all of it, because he doesn't know how to reciprocate love, because damaged people have a hard time loving others. He's walking that line of being verbally abusive here with Ada, and she's begging Kawaki to give her more time. But the other people watching the scene, they've taken notice in the gradual escalation with Kawaki and Ada's dynamic. First, you have Delta warning Kawaki to watch how he's speaking to Ada, and while Kawaki's telling Delta to mind her own business, we see Damon once again giving Kawaki that death glare, and it continues with what we've seen with these two as far back as part 1 of Boruto, where Damon warned Kawaki, do not disrespect or harm his sister. Here we see Damon making a glance at Kawaki that is basically a silent mental note of Damon saying strike 2, one more strike and you're out, because he doesn't seem too pleased with how Kawaki is talking to his sister, and it's something to keep your eye on moving forward with the story, because Damon versus Kawaki's been teased for a while now. It's at this point that Kawaki flies off with Delta at his side after Ada gives Kawaki Boruto's location, and there's a couple of things to take in note of this entire interaction. The first is that after Delta promises to tell Kawaki off for how he's been treating Ada, Ada continues to show seemingly unwaveringly love towards Kawaki by asking Delta to look after Kawaki for her, but when she's alone with just herself and Damon, the look on Ada's face gives a hint towards her being fully aware of how Kawaki hasn't truly reciprocated her love and affection, and he views her more as a tool, as a surveillance camera, more than anything else. Ada is standing by her man Kawaki. She's doing that for right now, but those feelings were clearly hurt, and if there's a split in the future, it won't be without Kawaki at least having gotten some warning to ease up on Ada, because as they're flying to Boruto's location, Ada warns Kawaki that the moment that Ada is tired of Kawaki, Delta's gonna kill him for the way that he's been treating her. But Kawaki shrugs it off, telling her the same thing that he told Sarda a few chapters ago in the Hokage office. Once he's completed his goal, basically kill Boruto, destroy the Ten Tails, and kill Code, he'll gladly go off into the shadows and won't bother anyone. What's worth mentioning here is Delta, and we need to keep our eyes on her character. She's lying behind Kawaki, but she's not using ninja tech to fly. If you go back to when she first invaded Konoha to fight Naruto, she used the ninja tech in her body to fly using those organic rockets that come out of her legs. Yet here, we see her flying without the assistance of ninja tech. That was not done by mistake. While we have seen characters like Inoki use their chakra to fly using their hidden jutsu, Delta doesn't strike me as the type of person to learn ninjutsu. In fact, all the cyborgs outside of Kashin Koji and Boro and Victor, they don't seem to have an appreciation for ninjutsu, which means we have to ask ourselves a really big question. Did Kawaki give Delta the Koma seal, and how far along is the extraction of Amado's daughter's soul going into Delta's body now? Meanwhile, as the remaining claw grime is running through the forest undetected, Boruto and Shikamaru, they continue their conversation from before, with Boruto telling Shikamaru that while the planet is currently in danger because of the Shinju, they won't have anything truly terrifying to worry about until either Boruto or Kawaki is eaten by one of the Shinju, because if that happens, the Shinju will become perfected and it will produce a chakra fruit that comes at the expense of life of the planet. What we're seeing here is further clarification for anyone who might have been wondering if the Shinju evolving meant the end of the result being Boruto and Kawaki getting consumed. Maybe that got changed, and the story's telling us no, nothing has changed. If people want the planet to survive, neither Boruto or Kawaki can be captured or consumed, because it will be game over if that's the case. Basically, these Shinju, they're going off on side quests, but the main mission to consume Boruto and Kawaki is still in effect. Shikamaru then takes time to press Boruto even further for information, which is very much in character for Shikamaru. He's getting as much information on the front end as he can so that he can begin coming up with counter strategies once he's had time to sit down and sort through all the details and come up with contingencies. And that's exactly why he begins to ask Boruto specifically about those people trapped in the trees or bitten by the Ten Tails. That's another sign that what Sarda told Shikamaru to do back in chapter 5 of Two Blue Vortex, he's taking under consideration, which is to work alongside Boruto to find a way to reverse the fates of those who are in the tree. It's something that he's following through with now, and we see the current 8th Hokage learning from the mistakes of the past as a result of this conversation with Boruto, which bodes well for future conversations he'll have with Sarda later on down the line. Boruto confirms with Shikamaru something that we as the audience, we've all suspected this, but now we have official confirmation, which is that the people in the tree, they're all alive, but it's because the Ten Tails that bit them is using their chakra specifically. We knew they were alive, but we didn't know officially if they were using their chakra. That's why they're being kept alive. Boruto doesn't know to what end this is being done for yet, but at least he knows that each of these evolved Shinju carry the chakra of those who they consume, which in hindsight explains Boruto's reaction when he saw Hidari. Now, Boruto could sense Sasuke's chakra from within him. That explains everything. Before Shikamaru can press Boruto any further, he's made aware of the fact that Kawaki is requesting to speak with him, and we get some much needed insight into how the Yamanaka clan's hidden jutsu, the mind transmission jutsu, works. From the moment that Konoha began using mind transmission to get around Ada's Semigon powers, there was a question by a lot of readers of, hey, what's to stop someone else from listening in on the conversation if they're part of the sensory unit? And now we know the truth. While the conversations are eventually logged, as Ino told us 2 chapters ago when Shikamaru and Boruto first made contact, each transmission between parties, it has its own independent link, so they can't be listened in on by a third party. So when Ino connects Shikamaru to Kawaki, Shikamaru is able to speak to Boruto on one channel and Kawaki on the other channel, and Kawaki would never be one the wiser to it. That's something that was needed a real quick explanation, because while it's common sense for the most part, as they say, common sense ain't that common, so you want to give as much information as quickly as possible to alleviate any doubt that people might have. Now, Kawaki informs Shikamaru that he and Delta, they're headed to Boruto's location now that Ada has located Boruto for them, and he lays out a really decent strategy that might have worked if it was anyone except for Boruto. Kawaki says, we're gonna have Delta attack Boruto from the skies, and while Boruto's distracted, I'm going to attack him from the ground. And in that split-second window that exists between Kawaki arriving and Boruto being able to sense him, that's when Kawaki would strike. However, Shikamaru tries to talk Kawaki out of attacking Boruto by warning him that, hey, Boruto's more skilled than he was before. Yet Kawaki still wants all that smoke with Boruto. It's at this point that Boruto likely reads the situation on his own and tells Shikamaru, hey, leave in the village, see you, Lord Eighth Hokage, and he uses the flying Raijin to teleport away. This leads us to the moment where Kawaki looks annoyed at the fact that he just missed Boruto, and he and Delta, they have no idea how Boruto knew that they were coming or how he got away so quickly. This is where paneling is very important to take note of, and why you guys will hear me say every now and then that there are certain things that manga can do that a really great anime adaptation can't fully convey. Kawaki is drawn looking at the corner of his eye, and his eyes are looking towards the panel where Shikamaru is shown. It's planting subtle seeds that Kawaki might be suspecting Shikamaru of helping Boruto in the future, if he hasn't already. Because in the past, Kawaki did raise a question of was someone on the sensor unit helping Boruto when Kawaki and Shikamaru were in the Hokage office in Chapter 5, and Kawaki didn't seem convinced by Shikamaru's answer. Really cheap plug, I cover in detail Kawaki suspecting Ino in my video, Will Kawaki Kill Ino? So you can check that out if you want that possibility further explored. We then move on to Ada, and she's lost in her thoughts, and she's being joined by Mitsuki, and this is where things get really interesting. Ada confronts Mitsuki for attacking Kawaki when his guard was lowered, and as a result, it leads to Ada informing Mitsuki that Kawaki wanted her to find Mitsuki so Kawaki could locate Boruto's location. But the conversation takes a drastic turn. Mitsuki starts telling Ada that until he met her, he never really knew what it means to feel love. Ada shuts all that down, saying, hey, I don't care if you got a tingly feeling in your loins, you're flirting with me, it ain't gonna work, you're better off going somewhere else. And Mitsuki concedes as much, but he gives her a shock that she wasn't expecting. Not everything is about her like she thinks. It wasn't so much that he was simping for Ada the way that every person who's affected by her power is forced to do, but Mitsuki points out that this was something deeper and he's being bugged by it. To paraphrase what he's saying, he wonders if he's reacting different because he's an artificial human, because as a reminder, Mitsuki, while he is Orochimaru's son, at the end of the day, he is literally a clone of Orochimaru himself on a genetic level. Mitsuki basically reveals that he had questions about himself as a result because of that fact, and he accepted it because in his mind, he always had a son, which for the longest time, due to his memory being altered, he believed that son to be Kawaki, but that conversation with Boruto has him raising doubts, which explains why the chapter opened up with Ada focusing in on that part of the conversation. It was foreshadowing meant to get us to this moment where Ada and Mitsuki have a quasi-philosophical conversation on the topic of love itself. Mitsuki has taken Boruto's words to heart by saying that he needs to believe in himself because if he can't, he'll lose sight of what the sun is to him, and it's important to keep that in mind. In Chapter 7, Boruto tells Mitsuki that it's Mitsuki who gets to determine who and what is the sun to him. Boruto in the same chapter tells him that he is more than capable of being his own sun, that can shine on its own and it doesn't need the light of others. It was a subtle way and a symbolic way of saying that Mitsuki needs to learn to love himself first before he tries to find that sun that shines for him. And Mitsuki in this chapter with Ada is coming to that conclusion, and whether he realizes it or not, he's trying to make her realize it as well, which is why he asks her, hey, why do you really love Kawaki? Now, from the moment that Boruto Naruto Next Generations first introduced Ada's character and she declared her love for Kawaki, a lot of people said that was coming off very shallow. She basically got turned on by the guy because he offered her something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Kawaki offered her excitement when she saw Kawaki trick Ishiki and kill him, talking trash to him as he did so.
There's a fight coming.
It gave off vibes of, say, the girl next door being turned on by the bad boy, and we see here that Mitsuki's questioning if that's actually enough for Ada to feel love for Kawaki, and Ada describes that feeling that hopefully all of us have been fortunate enough to experience at some point in our lives. She says that thinking of Kawaki fills her heart with a tight pain, showing that what she feels for Kawaki, it does run deep, and it might not be infatuation. Could Ada be feeling true, genuine love for Kawaki that develops developed over the last 3 years or so? Or could this be her feeling the pain coming from the heartbreak and knowing that Kawaki merely sees her as a human GPS monitor and not as a potential partner? That much remains to be seen as of now. Ada flips the conversation back on to Mitsuki, saying that due to her ability, the emotions that Mitsuki's feeling, they're false love. And so he doesn't understand what real love is. But Mitsuki, he doesn't seem completely convinced. And he admits that he basically feared losing what he determined to be his son, whether it be real or whether it be fake, which leads to Ada taking a harder stance. To paraphrase what she's saying, she's in a roundabout way asking Mitsuki if he's wondering if her feelings for Kawaki aren't real, but potentially fake as well. And she's confused as if Mitsuki's trying to go that route. And Ada pretty much goes, well, guess what? That's what being human is. The whole reason this conversation works so well is that it's showing us that when it comes to human nature, in particular, when it comes to matters of the heart, there is no black and white answer. You love who you love for whatever reason. It's not something you can fully put into words oftentimes. It's not something that relies on logic. Love is anything but logical. It's illogical in itself. If we're being honest here, and seeing Mitsuki as he is right now, as he's continuing through his evolution through the stages of humanity, clearly entering into a point where he's on the cusp of enlightenment, it's so fascinating to see these two talk. However, Mitsuki's words, they did strike something deep inside of Ada, and now she finds herself openly saying that she wants to speak to Boruto. This goes back to the joke earlier. Boruto added another person to his harem, and that's going to be a very interesting conversation to see them have in the future, because we may be seeing yet another alliance form between these two in the future. Since their old alliance made back in Boruto Naruto Next Generation Chapter 80, where she swore not to use her powers to help Konoha track Boruto, that alliance ended the moment that he returned to Lane of Fire. So this could be the seeds being planted for a second alliance between the two. Meanwhile, at the Ten Tails hideout, Jura tells Hidari, hey, it's time for us to make our move. And we see something rather interesting here, which is that cube that they have at the base of their hideout. It directly connects to one of the claw grinds that is still running around the Lane of Fire, positioning itself. And when Jura leans his head against it, he's able to teleport out of one of the markers on the back of the claw grind, and so too does Hidari. This leads to one of the boldest entrances that we've ever seen a villain do in the Naruto world. Itachi and Kisame, when they came to Konoha, they snuck in because Itachi knew the barrier code and they just went down the wall. Pain invaded from the skies. Jigen teleported into Naruto's living room. Totally disrespectful, but that was more so by accident right there. Jigen even apologized. Ishiki teleported in from the sky just above the village. These two, Jura and Hidari, they're literally standing outside the gates with their hands in their pockets, doing a whole ass pose, and they're planning to walk right through the front gates, and it's both hilarious and disrespectful because it shows how little they think of the defenses of the strongest ninja village in all of the 5 nations. As they walk right through the gates, not even bothering to hide their chakra signature. Ino is told by Shikamaru that regardless as to if she believes Boruto's story or not, she needs to keep the information that they had discussed to herself, and that's where Shikamaru learns that Sasuke's come through the gates, except we as the audience know this really isn't Sasuke, it's Hidari. But Shikamaru isn't the only one who knows this because that transmission went out to everyone. While the unlucky Chunin and Jonin assemble to head those two off, Sarada is the only Konoha shinobi alongside class rep who knows that the chakra they're sensing, it might belong to Sasuke, but it's not really Sasuke. And as she and the class rep are running to the location, Jura shows off a whole wide-scale wood-release jutsu that takes out Shinobi faster than Ada can provide Shikamaru with the update that those two intruders, they're not really Sasuke and an unnamed person, they're really Shinju. This leads to Jura making a pit stop to the bookstore that he stumbles across, and we see that this guy's getting excited as he's walking through the bookstore looking for new books to take back to his hideout for that Shinju book club that he's seemingly setting up. But jokes aside though, we're seeing a continued thirst for knowledge that further confirms what we were told in chapter 4. These Shinju, they're evolving beyond their natural instinct to be used just to consume an Otsutsuki for a chakra fruit, and their awakening is continuing, and it's continuing rapidly. Some are going a little faster than others, because Hidari is a bit of a goofball in that he's calling out for Naruto Uzumaki thinking that, hey, he might be in this bookstore, which even Jura has that Saitama bruh face on, because he he knows that the only books that Naruto will be looking at around here are pop-up books. They make music and sound effects, or he'll be looking at dirty magazines he hides from Hinata. However, before they get too complacent, Kawaki suddenly shoots out chakra rods at Hidari, and Hidari is able to sense and avoid them pretty much at point blank range, and that's really impressive because as we saw with Sasuke during the fight with Jigen and the next fight with Ishiki, Sasuke, even with this Rinnegan and Sharingan combination, he was unable to track the speed of those chakra rod. He could see them, but he couldn't track them until just before he got hit by them. Yet Hidari tracks them and avoids them easily, which is enough that we can start that conversation of Hidari stronger than Rinnegan Sasuke, who fought against Jigen and Ishiki. As Hidari leaps into the air, Kawaki hits him with a drop kick, and as he and Delta get ready for combat, Jura steps out of the bookstore telling Kawaki that, hey, I'm not going to eat you, but fam, you better not damage these books in this bookstore.
I opened a 360 checking account when I moved to Chicago for grad school. I'm always on the go, so if it's not on my phone.
And before Kawaki can react, Jura summons a giant tree from underneath the ground to trap Kawaki, but Kawaki quickly counters by using Sukuna Hikona to shrink himself and resides behind Jura, but it's all to no avail. Jura, with one punch, he shatters Kawaki's ninja tech weapon made from Kawaki's chakra, and despite Kawaki having the Koma still activated, Jura one-shots this guy with his next attack, but not before telling him that he isn't going to eat Kawaki just yet, and he tells Kawaki disrespectfully stay put because he's got other things to attend to. Kawaki gets sent flying across the village into a water tank, and as Delta races after Kawaki, Jura is shown flying in the air, looking in the opposite direction of Kawaki, saying out loud he's found Naruto, and that is very interesting. Jura thinks he's found Naruto, but the dynamic is interesting because it's dramatic irony in that we in the audience, we know that Jura should be looking at Kawaki because Kawaki sealed Naruto in that Daikoku dimension, which means Jura might think he senses Naruto, but he clearly doesn't, and he doesn't have a connection to the Daikoku dimension because otherwise he'd know that's where Naruto is and that Kawaki has access to it. Jura states that because Naruto is a Jinchuriki who possesses a tail beast, he can sense Naruto, and it's because Jura himself is the incarnation of that tail beast, because the 10 tails is where the 9 Biju were made when Hagoromo performed the creation of all things to create the 9 Biju. It's natural that he can sense Naruto, or what he believes is Naruto. As Jura and Hidari fly off, and as Kawaki is put to sleep for the second time in 3 chapters, again Kawaki's stocks are going down. Shikadai is leading the members of Team 10 and HimaWaris, and he's giving them orders on how they're going to handle the person they believe is Sasuke and the other intruder, but just as they begin to turn the corner, Hidari and Jura, they drop down in front of them, and we get the plot twist of the century. The person that Jura has been sensing is HimaWaris Uzumaki, and that's where we end off the chapter. And I'm gonna say this before we get into the HimaWaris thing, because there's a lot that we have to talk about in terms of HimaWaris and her potentially having the chakra, the 9 Biju inside of her. I'm gonna say this right now, with the way that Kawaki's been taking L after L after L, with an extra heaping of L's, he's getting reconstructed, he's being pushed into a desperate corner, and I think that we're setting the stage for the Kawaki that eventually blows up the village. If it's anything less than that, Kawaki's been a failure. Kawaki stocks I'm buying low right now. Basically buying the dip because I think that this is going to be something that is going to be on the rise somewhere in the next few chapters. I don't think Kawaki stays in the mud this far down. I definitely think we also have to have that serious conversation about Delta having the Karma Seal and Ada potentially double-crossing Kawaki by helping Boruto. That alliance is something I really think that we got to look at. Boruto's got another woman in his harem. But first and foremost, as we close this out, we absolutely have to talk about HimaWaris. The Biju chakra that Jura was sensing can be found inside of HimaWaris, which is something that I mentioned 4 years ago in a video on my channel, asking was HimaWaris the next Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, and in the collaboration I did on Anime Balls Deep's channel last year, where we discussed that as well as some other possibilities due to the chakra Naruto and Hinata possess, including the possibility of a retcon made to the Tensegan lore. I believe the Anime Balls Deep video was called HimaWaris Tensegan. But now that we know and have strong evidence that that special power that Damon sensed inside of HimaWaris might be something Biju related, which that's absolutely huge because again, her father had the chakra, the 9 Biju inside of
It's
him.
gonna be
Her
huge.
mother had remnants of Hama's chakra, and Naruto had remnants of Hagoromo's chakra. So I'll drop a video later this week explaining why this is.
This is going to be huge. If she has the Telvi's chakra inside her, it's going to be huge, and it's going to change the Boruto story. Thank y'all for watching this video with me. Thank you.